Are you going to sleep lonely tonight?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm trying my hardest to learn the language so I can be able to speak and understand more.
Football has a funny way of selling us dreams that don't always come true. One moment, a young player bursts onto the scene, and the football world is convinced this is the next global superstar, someone destined to take over the game for years. But football rarely sticks to that script. So who are the players that had the hype, the headlines, and the sky-high expectations, but never quite reached that level? That's exactly what this story is about. 10 players who didn't become as great as everyone once believed they would. Let's start with a name that had the world watching early, Eduardo Camavinga. When Camavinga first broke through as a teenager, it felt like football had discovered its next generational midfield ruler. He made his professional debut at just 16 years old, becoming the youngest player in Rennes history. Not long after, he set more records, youngest assist provider in League One, and the youngest ever to win the UNFP Player of the Month award. Every week seemed to bring a new milestone, and every milestone pushed the hype even higher. So when Real Madrid signed him at just 18, it looked like the beginning of something special, maybe even historic, the kind of signing that defines an era. But fast forward to today, and the story hasn't fully matched the expectations. Even with legends like Modric, Casemiro, and Kroos moving on, Camavinga still hasn't locked down a permanent starting role. The talent is obvious. His technique, his control, his versatility all stand out. But brilliance on paper doesn't always translate into dominance on the pitch. He already has an impressive trophy cabinet, including multiple Champions League titles. That alone would define most careers. But when he first exploded onto the scene, the expectation wasn't just success. It was superstardom. The idea was simple. Camavinga wouldn't just be good, he'd be one of the very best in the world by now. And yet, that final step still hasn't arrived. Now, from a current Madrid talent to a former one, let's talk about Mariano Díaz. When Mariano came through the Real Madrid system, excitement followed him everywhere. He had pace, flair, confidence, and most importantly, that rare, big stage energy that made fans believe he was built for the spotlight. The expectations grew so high that Real Madrid handed him the iconic number 7 shirt, once worn by Cristiano Ronaldo, a statement of belief few players ever receive. Then came that unforgettable moment, a stunning goal off the bench against Barcelona. In that instant, it felt like everything was falling into place. The narrative was writing itself. Mariano Díaz, the surprise hero, the next breakout star. But football can change direction just as quickly as it builds hope. And for Mariano, that early promise never fully turned into the career many expected. For whatever reason, Mariano just couldn't make it at the very top level. And while he faded out of that elite spotlight, another player stepped in and became everything fans once hoped Mariano would be. Vinícius Jr., who turned potential into real, world-class impact. Now let's shift to a name many people almost forgot, but shouldn't have. Krzysztof Piątek. Do you remember him? Back in 2018, he arrived at Genoa as a 23-year-old striker, and almost instantly, it felt like football had discovered a new goal machine. No warm-up, no adjustment period. He exploded straight out the gate. On his Serie A debut alone, he scored 4 goals. Not over a season, not over a month, his first game, and he didn't slow down. Piątek became the first player in nearly 20 years to score 5 goals in his first 4 Serie A matches. Then he went even further, becoming the first in over 2 decades to score in each of his first 7 league appearances. At that point, defenders weren't just struggling, they couldn't figure him out at all. By the end of that blistering run, he had set a record as the fastest debutant in nearly 70 years to hit double-digit goals in Italy's top flight. Across Europe's top 5 leagues, he was also the first player that season to reach 10 goals. And just like that, a star was born. Fans started getting used to the celebration too, that iconic gun pose after every goal. It wasn't just a celebration anymore, it became a warning. The hype got so big that AC Milan didn't even wait for the season to end. They signed him just 6 months after his move to Genoa, convinced they were getting the next elite striker in Europe. And at first, it looked like the story was only going one way, straight up. He even made history immediately, becoming the first Milan player in 6 years to score in each of his first 3 Serie A starts. Everything felt like confirmation. This wasn't a hot streak. This was the real deal. But football moves fast, and so does fortune. Because just a year later, the rise that once looked unstoppable had already started to fade. Then came the turning point. He left for Hertha Berlin, and that's where everything started to unravel. The momentum that once looked unstoppable slowly disappeared. The confidence dipped, the goals dried up, and the rise that had once felt inevitable never really returned. At one point, Piątek looked like he could become one of the elite strikers of his generation, the kind of forward you build teams around. But football doesn't always follow potential. Today, he's playing in the Qatar Stars League at just 30 years old, a far cry from the heights his early career promised. And that's what makes football so unpredictable. Football isn't just a game. It's emotion, identity, and moments that define generations. Now, back to another name that had the football world convinced he was destined for greatness. Dušan Vlahović. At Fiorentina, he didn't just look promising, he looked unstoppable. A physical force, a clinical finisher, a striker who made scoring look automatic. In the 2020-21 season, he was named Serie A Best Young Player, and the hype only grew from there. Then came the breakout explosion the following year, when he started being mentioned in the same conversations as the very best. In 2021 alone, Vlahović scored 33 Serie A goals, becoming the first player since 1951 to hit that mark in a single calendar year, alongside Cristiano Ronaldo. At Fiorentina, he had already reached 38 goals in just a season and a half, outscoring every other active player over that same stretch. He also joined a very exclusive club, becoming one of only 2 players born after 2000 to reach 40-plus goals in Europe's top 5 leagues, standing right next to Erling Haaland. At that point, it didn't feel like potential anymore. It felt like the start of something dominant, something inevitable. These were the kinds of numbers that had everyone talking about Dušan Vlahović like he was the next unstoppable force in world football. At Fiorentina, he wasn't just scoring, he was dominating. The expectation was simple. Once he made his big money move to Juventus for 70 million euros, he was going to explode onto an even bigger stage. But football rarely follows the script. Instead of becoming the next global superstar, things leveled off. The same player once labeled a future world beater is now seen more as a solid striker than a game-changing force. Not bad by any means, but not the takeover people expected either. And that's the twist. Sometimes hype builds faster than reality can keep up. Now from a current Juventus striker to a former one, Paulo Dybala. Let's be clear, Dybala has had a strong career. No debate there. But about a decade ago, the expectation wasn't good career. It was all-time great. At Juventus, he was pure magic. Flashes of brilliance, unforgettable goals, and moments that made fans believe he was destined for greatness. In 2017, he came close to leading Juve to an unprecedented European treble, only to be stopped by a dominant Real Madrid side in the Champions League final. And in many ways, that felt like a turning point. The peak had arrived earlier than expected. Injuries played their part, sure, but the feeling never went away that Dybala was supposed to reach even higher than he did. Then there's João Félix, a story that feels strangely similar. When he burst onto the scene at Benfica, he looked like a generational talent in the making. He became the youngest player ever to score a Europa League hat-trick and finished that season among the top teenage contributors in Europe's top leagues. To top it off, he won the Golden Boy Award. The message was loud and clear. This was a future superstar. That's why his massive transfer made him one of the most expensive teenagers in football history and one of the priciest players ever. But now, at just 26, he finds himself in the Saudi Pro League, a career path few would have predicted at the start. Some say the turning point was his move to Atletico Madrid. Others believe he simply never found the right environment. Either way, the expectations were sky high. And the landing has been far from where everyone once expected. He's played for giants like Chelsea, Barcelona, and AC Milan, but somehow, the level everyone expected from him never fully showed up. And that brings us to another name that once had Chelsea fans buzzing. Billy Gilmour. Remember that night against Liverpool in the FA Cup back in 2020? He didn't just play well, he ran the game. Calm, confident, completely in control, and walked away with Man of the Match. Just days later, he started in the Premier League against Everton and did it again. Another top performance, another Man of the Match. In that moment, it felt obvious. Chelsea had found their next midfield leader. The hype was instant. Future of the midfield. Next big thing. All of it. But then reality hit. The COVID break stalled his momentum, and a knee injury slowed everything down. By 2021, he was on his way to Norwich City. A year later, Brighton. Now he's at Napoli. And while that's still a solid career by any standard, those early performances made people believe we were watching the birth of a superstar, not just a steady professional. Now let's talk about Douglas Costa. At Bayern Munich, he was electric. Under Pep Guardiola, he had freedom, confidence, and the kind of pace that terrified defenders. He looked like Brazil's next big winger, flashy, effective, unstoppable on his day. But when Carlo Ancelotti arrived, everything changed. His minutes dropped, confidence faded, and frustration crept in. Injuries only made things worse. He moved to Juventus, went back to Bayern, but never truly rediscovered that explosive version of himself. Today, he's playing in the fourth tier of Italian football, a shocking turn for a player who once looked like one of the most dangerous wingers in the world. Another player many expected to become a global star is Thomas Lemar. Back when AS Monaco was producing elite talent like Kylian Mbappe, Bernardo Silva and Fabinho, Lemar was right there in the same spotlight. The belief was simple. He was next in line. His potential was so obvious that by 2017, Premier League giants were already circling. Liverpool reportedly made a massive £65 million offer, and Arsenal went even bigger with a €100 million bid that same summer. But the timing changed everything. Arsenal's move came in too late on deadline day, and the deal collapsed at the finish line. Instead, Lemar eventually joined Atletico Madrid the following year for around €70 million. The expectation was sky high, but the breakout never fully arrived. The player everyone thought would dominate Europe never quite hit that top-tier level consistently. Today, he's on loan at Girona, and his season has been quiet, just 3 goals so far. And then there's Renato Sanches, a name that once felt destined for greatness. In 2016, he exploded onto the scene at Euro 2016 in a way few teenagers ever have. He didn't just break into the Portugal squad. He shattered records, becoming one of the youngest players ever selected and the youngest to start at a major tournament for his country. His performances were electric. He even earned Man of the Match honors and finished the tournament as Young Player of the Tournament after helping Portugal win their first major trophy. That summer, Bayern Munich moved fast, paying €80 million to sign him, making him the most expensive Portuguese player ever to leave the domestic league at the time. The football world thought a superstar midfielder had just been born. But the rise didn't continue the way everyone expected. After just 1 season at Bayern, he was already moving on to Swansea City on loan. Later, Paris Saint-Germain tried to revive his career in 2022, hoping to unlock that early magic again, but the breakthrough still didn't fully return. Now, once considered a generational midfield talent, Sanches finds himself playing in the Greek league during what should have been his peak years. So it leaves the question hanging. How many other players had future superstar written all over them, but never quite reached it? If you've got names in mind, drop them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. See you in the next one.